Dodd coming to you live from Jacksonville, Florida. Uh, I couldn't, I'm posting so late because I had a project I needed to get done. And I know I missed yesterday and I didn't want to miss another day because I found that I really kind of enjoy this. And today, have you ever seen anyone that you've walked by and they look confident or they were happy and you just thought in the back of your mind, what made them who they are, and how did they become what they are doing now? Well, this is it. This is my chance to tell you, who am I and where did I come from, and why is that guy always smiling? Why is he always in a good mood, every time I see him, he's got a great attitude? Well, today is the beginning of my story. Yesterday's the beginning of my journey. 2 days ago was the beginning of my journey. Today's the beginning of my story. Well, again, I remember when I was 4 or 5 years old. I have one brother that's younger and two sisters, one older and one younger. And I remember when I was 4 or 5 years old, my mother used to always tell me about how smart I was and how I could do anything. And it wasn't in a patronizing way. It actually was in a earnest way. I remember that she didn't really do that to my brother or my sisters, but she just knew there was just something different about me. And that those positive affirmations, you have to understand that what I've come to learn is that when we're that young, our reasoning mind or our conscious mind isn't developed. It's just our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is not like the reasoning mind. It has no filter. In other words, anything that goes in there actually is absorbed and accepted. So what did that do? That was so powerful at a young age. It gave me an incredible confidence at such a young age. Just because my mother really, and still today, continues to tell me how smart I am and how much I can do. And I really appreciate that. Thank you, Mom. In first grade, I remember my teacher, Mrs. Barry. I remember her asking my mom if she could take me to the Rhode Island hospital to meet this doctor to recite my consonant blends and vowels. I guess because I had done it at such a young age, she was fascinated and she wanted to show this doctor. And as a reward, she was going to take me out with her family for spaghetti dinner. Wow, man, that was a great experience. I performed well, and then we had the spaghetti dinner. But what that did, that reinforced what my mother had said. You're smart and you can do anything you put your mind to. So fast forward a little bit. I went to junior high school at a school called George J. West. Now you have to understand, this junior high school was known for its theatrical musical productions. The man there named Mr. LaFlamme, he was gifted and very talented with staging and the lights and all that great stuff. And then we had Mrs. Berger, who was the modern dance teacher. Yes, I did modern dance at a young age, but it was a thing. It was a thing at that school. If you weren't part of the theater, you weren't on the in crowd. And we did major productions. We did Pippin, we did Jesus Christ Superstar, we did another one too, Tommy, and I still remember. In Jesus Christ Superstar, I played Judas, and in the one we did, Judas had a major role in terms of a lot of the dance numbers that I was in, and also in the end they actually did a hanging, and it was kind of interesting when they kind of pulled me up. But I remember my friend David Maelli, his mother would always come up to me and she said, "I cry every time they hang you," because of that powerful dance number that I do just prior to hanging myself. Okay, so that was my time there, and I really think that that's what really gave me that taste to be on stage, to perform, and to instill emotion in others because of that experience I had in junior high school. Fast forward on to college, fast forward on to high school, I went to classical high school, which is actually one of the best high schools in the country, and still is, because I was up there and there's a big sign, which I'll share one day. It shows that. But anyways, I was a math nerd and a football player in high school. And I can remember in my algebra and my geometry classes, when the teacher would give the bonus questions, I would spend hours at night trying to figure out how to get the answers to these bonus questions. And I remember coming in and the teacher would say, "Who did the bonus?" And my hand would always go up. Then they'd have me come to the board and I'd go through this long, convoluted process on how I came up with the right answer. And then the teacher would come behind me and make 2 or 3 assumptions and get the answer in 3 steps. What that taught me was there's always more than one way to do a problem. And you may not always have the best and easiest way to get it done. And now on to the football side of things. I can remember I played offensive and defensive tackle for classical high school. And in my junior year, we won. We were an average team in terms of the talent and the players. And in my junior year, we won all except for 2 games. We were like 16-2. And I remember the senior year, we were thinking, oh man, we got all this talent. We're just going to knock the book off the cover this year because we just got so much talent. Didn't happen, man. All we won was like, it was either 2 or 4 games that year. And, after that season, I thought about that. I said, how come when we had an average team in our junior year, we almost won the whole season, but yet when we had all this exceptional talent in the senior year, and we only won 2 games. Excuse me. What happened was during that junior year, everyone gelled together and everyone knew they had to do their assignment and everyone knew how to play together with each other. And we did. And that's why we were like a well-greased machine. That's why we won so many games. We didn't have a lot of great talent, but we worked as a team, a strong one unit. Now, come senior year, you had all your seniors, and they wanted to make their mark and their move, and we just didn't quite get in rhythm. And it showed. We only won 2 out of 18 games. So there's a lot to be said about that. Well, let me check my notes. I want to make sure I keep going. I don't want to go too long. So that was high school. Now it's time for college. And I can remember, how do you determine what you're going to be when you grow up? Well, I took an inventory of myself. I thought, you're a pretty good artist. You like to draw, and you're a tremendous math student. So let's look at the professions. Architecture. I'll become an architect. So I applied for architect schools, and I got picked up by Rhode Island School of Design. But as I continued to study and look at different schools, I really wanted to go to Illinois Institute of Technology. But then I had the discussion with my father, who didn't want to influence me in my decision. He just simply said, "You got a full-paid scholarship here at Rhode Island School of Design, and you want to go all the way to Chicago. You're going to be by yourself, and if you don't like it, it ain't going to be me that brings you back here, but you make your own decision." And, I wasn't familiar at that time with the different faculties, mental faculties that we actually have. And one is intuition. And I let the persuasiveness of someone I respected to sway me. And I was risk averse at that time. So I just stayed and I went to Rhode Island School of Design. I went there and I almost didn't make it out, to be honest, because I got involved with a multi-level marketing type thing, and my time was kind of split. So then it was when I got near the end of the year, I decided I'll join the Navy. My father had been in the Navy, and my uncle had been a senior chief in the Navy. So I figured I'll join the Navy. So I signed up in January, knowing that I was going to be graduating from college, hopefully in June. About a month after I had signed up, I found out that I could go in not as an enlisted man, not that enlisted is bad, but I could go as an officer and I get some perks. I said, great, go in as an officer. But I talked to the recruiter, he said, well, you already signed up. You have to take an exam. If you do well in the exam, we'll transfer you over into the officer program. Well, I knew myself. I asked about this exam. I said, what's more important? And I knew I was kind of slow taking tests. I said, what's more important? Is it more important that I get them right or that I finish the test? He said, oh, no. Just take your time and just get as many right. It's more important the number you get right as opposed to you finishing the test. I said, okay. So I took my time. And then after the exam, he said, he said to me, I got some good news and some not so good news. I said, okay, so what's the good news? He said, the good news is all the questions you answered, you got right. I said, great. He said, the bad news is you didn't answer enough questions. I was like, man, I had asked you that in the beginning. If you had told me that, then I would have pushed myself and got through it a lot faster and got more questions done. So anyways, I went in the Navy, and I know that I get, he said in 2 years, you can go ahead and apply for the officer program. I said, that is fine. So give me a moment. I want to make sure that I stay on track with my story so that we get everything situated here. So I joined the Navy. We've talked about that. And though I was good with, sometimes I was a little slow. Okay. All right. So I joined the Navy. I went to Great Lakes and I went to boot camp. That's another story for another time. And then I went to a basic electricity school and then the electrician's mate school. I was a nuclear power electrician was my rating for those in the Navy. For those in the Army or Marines, that was my MOS. I was an electrician. So my girlfriend, wife at the time, didn't want to come to Chicago when I was there in Great Lakes. But then nuclear power school was in Orlando. Aha. So then my lady perked up and said, wow, I want to come to Orlando. So then came the struggle here. How do I get her down there? I'm only an E4, maybe an E5, E4 at the time. And I'm trying to work the numbers to figure out how can I get a car and then get an apartment and then bring her down and our 2 children that were babies. And I'm like, I work these numbers and I work these numbers and I just couldn't make it work. They just kept falling short. So then right around Christmas, I told my bride, I said, sorry, I can't get you down here. I just can't make the numbers work. And man, she was upset. But, I just couldn't do it. But I continued my plan. I was able to get the car. Then directly following the car, about a week later, I was driving around and just outside the back gate, I found an apartment. So then I was able to bring her down, and that was great. So then when I was first down here, remember I told you in about 2 years they said I could join the officer program. So I was a part of the security force waiting to go into the nuclear power school. And I said, well, it's a good time to apply for the officer program again and see if I can get in. And I had a board and they were asking me questions about boot camp. And I remember in boot camp, they wanted me to be a squad leader. And I had been a part-time job I had was a swing manager at McDonald's. So I didn't necessarily want to be in charge again, particularly in boot camp, because anytime anyone messed up, you had to do part of the, you had to get part of the punishment. So I didn't do that. So they judged me on that at this board. And it's like guns responsibility, not decisive decision making. So I told my supervisor, I said, look at these evaluations. He said, if I were you, I would tear those up. And then in a week from now, when you go to nuclear power school, go ahead and have another board and then see how you do then, and then send that in. And that's what I did. And they asked important, critical questions about, what would you do in this situation? What would you do here if you were in charge? And I explained it, and I told them, and I gave some great answers. And just a week later, the evaluations were like raving. I just knew I was going to nuclear power, to the officer candidate program. And sure enough, I did. I got picked up and became an officer in the Navy. And that was great. Saw a lot of the world. I went to a lot of places. One of the things that happened after I finished my training in the Navy, the first ship I went to was USS Long Beach, which was in not Boston Spa, was up in Bremerton, Washington. And I remember the salty warrant officer who I had met, and he said to me, he said, you're ambitious and you're young. And he said, in order to make sure that you don't make mistakes, make sure you double check all your work. And he gave me great advice. So I learned that from him. And it kept me out of trouble a lot of times while I was there. And that was kind of where I'm going to leave off right now. And we will continue this story about how I became who I am when we meet again tomorrow. Thank you. You've been great. And I'll see you on the next video.